there's a tier above the chosen. Most people don't know that. Most teachers won't say it out loud, because the moment you say it, the religious crowd gets uncomfortable. They want everyone to be the same. They want the playing field to look flat. They want every soul that ever drew breath to be exactly equal in calling, exactly equal in assignment, exactly equal in weight. But heaven doesn't work that way. Heaven never worked that way. There were 12 disciples. 3 were inner circle. 1 leaned on Jesus' chest. There were 70 sent out. There were 120 in the upper room. There were thousands fed on the hillside. And out of every one of those concentric rings, the closer you got to the fire, the fewer people stood there. The same pattern exists today. There are chosen ones, and then there are the ones inside the chosen, the rarest tier, the ones I'm calling, for the sake of this conversation, Omega level, the smallest fraction of the 144,000, the ones who carry an assignment so specific, so weighty, so quietly catastrophic to the kingdom of darkness, that most of you have spent your entire lives wondering why your spiritual life looks nothing like anyone else's around you. My name is George, and I'm not here to puff anyone up. I'm not here to tell you that you're special so you'll stay till the end of the video. I'm here because the Spirit has been pressing on me to speak to a very specific person, maybe a few hundred of them scattered across this whole platform, and tell them what's already true. What's been true since before they were born. What no pastor, no friend, no family member has been able to put words to. I want to walk you through 9 signs. If even 4 or 5 of these land in your spirit, you need to stop everything else you're doing today and pay attention. Because heaven doesn't waste videos like this. Heaven sends them at the exact hour the chosen one is ready to hear them. Let's start. The first sign is something I call the unexplainable interference. Your life has been interfered with. Not difficult interfered with. There's a difference. Hard lives happen to a lot of people, but your life has been characterized by a strange pattern where, every time something is about to break through, something unrelated falls apart. A door opens, and a relative gets sick the same week. A job offer comes through, and a vehicle breaks down. A spiritual breakthrough hits, and suddenly an old wound resurfaces out of nowhere. You've tried to explain it to people. Most can't see it. They tell you it's coincidence. They tell you you're being dramatic. They tell you everyone goes through stuff. But you know, somewhere deep in your bones, that the pattern is too consistent to be random. It isn't random. It never was. The interference is the fingerprint of an enemy that recognized you before most humans ever did. Hell doesn't waste resources on souls that aren't going to matter. The amount of resistance in your life has always been a quiet measurement of what's hidden inside of you. The second sign is the involuntary discernment. You walk into rooms and you know things. You don't ask. You don't want to know. You'd actually prefer not to know. But the moment you step into a space, your spirit reads it. You sense who's lying. You sense who's wearing a mask. You sense which marriage is in trouble even when the couple is laughing across the table. You sense which coworker is about to betray someone weeks before it happens. You've tried to dial it down. You've tried to assume the best about people. You've tried to give them the benefit of the doubt. And every single time, the thing your spirit told you in the first 3 minutes turns out to be exactly what was happening underneath. This is not paranoia. This is not anxiety. This is a gift that very few carry. Most people walk through life half blind to the spiritual undercurrent of the rooms they're in. You walk in fully sighted, and it's exhausting because you can't unsee what you see. You go home from gatherings carrying weight that nobody else carried, because nobody else even noticed it was in the room. That's an Omega level sign. The intensity of your perception isn't a curse. It's an early indicator of an assignment that requires you to read people, read seasons, and read what heaven is doing in real time. The third sign is the prophetic dream pattern. I want to be careful here, because everyone dreams. Not every dream is prophetic, but there's a specific pattern that shows up in this rare tier. You dream of people you haven't thought about in years, and within 72 hours you hear from them. You dream of places you've never been, and you visit them years later, and recognize the corner. You dream of conversations that happen, almost word for word, sometimes weeks down the road. You don't talk about it. You'd sound crazy if you did. So you keep a journal. Or you don't, and you just remember. And every time another one comes true, you sit there in your kitchen at 2 in the morning, holding a coffee cup, wondering what on earth is going on with you. What's going on is simple. You're being briefed. Heaven is briefing you in your sleep, because it's the only time your mind gets quiet enough to receive. Daniel was briefed in dreams. Joseph was briefed in dreams. The wise men who came to baby Jesus were briefed in dreams. The pattern isn't new. The pattern is just rare. And it's rarer still in our generation, which is exactly why those who carry it have to stop dismissing it. The fourth sign is the strange immunity to false comfort. This one I'm going to take time with, because it's one of the most overlooked. You can't get drunk on the things most people use to numb themselves. You try them sometimes. The entertainment, the busyness, the relationships, the food, the alcohol, the endless scrolling, and none of it works for you the way it works for everyone else. You finish the binge, and you feel emptier than when you started. You leave the party, and the ache is still there. You buy the thing, and the satisfaction lasts about 45 minutes. Most of your peers can self-medicate their way through a decade. You can't. Heaven won't let you. Because every time you try to settle for something cheaper than your assignment, your spirit revolts. The hangover isn't physical. It's spiritual. You feel God's grief in your own chest, and it sobers you faster than anything else could. This isn't a flaw. This isn't an inability to enjoy life. This is a built-in protection. The Omega-level chosen ones are wired to be unable to fall in love with the substitutes. Because if they could, they would. And the assignment would never get done. Think about Solomon for a second. The wisest man who ever lived. The one who built the temple. The one who had everything, every kind of wealth, every kind of pleasure, every kind of comfort imaginable. And what did he write at the end of his life? Meaningless. All of it. Vanity. Chasing the wind. He had access to more substitutes than anyone in human history. And they didn't satisfy him. They couldn't. Because the calling on his life was wired bigger than the substitutes available. That's the same wiring in you. You were given an appetite that earthly things can't fill, not because heaven is cruel, but because heaven is precise. The size of your hunger is a measurement of the size of what's coming to feed it. If you could have settled, you would have. The fact that you can't is the loudest signal you've ever ignored. The fifth sign is the recurring spiritual battlefield. You will notice that the same battle keeps coming back to your front door, dressed in different clothes. The same kind of betrayal. The same kind of accusation. The same kind of misunderstanding from people who should know better. It feels personal because it is personal. The enemy has a strategy against your life, and he keeps recycling it because he hasn't figured out anything more effective. But here's the secret. Every time the battle comes back, you fight it differently than the last time. You're stronger, you're calmer, you're less reactive. The thing that would have broken you at 23 doesn't even rattle you at 35. The accusation that would have sent you into a tailspin in your old life now barely interrupts your breathing. That's not because the attack got smaller. It's because you got bigger. The recurring battlefield isn't a sign of failure. It's a sign that heaven is using the same training ground to develop a specific muscle in you that's going to be needed for what's coming. The Omega-level chosen ones don't get 1,000 different tests. They get the same test 1,000 different ways, until the response is so automatic, so refined, so weaponized, that the enemy stops sending it. Look at Joseph. He didn't get one betrayal. He got a sequence. His brothers threw him in a pit. He got sold into slavery. He got falsely accused by Potiphar's wife. He got thrown into prison. He got forgotten by the cupbearer he helped. Over and over, the same theme: betrayal by people who should have honored him. And every single time, Joseph responded with more grace, more wisdom, more integrity than the time before. By the time he stood in front of his brothers years later, the muscle was so developed that he could weep over them, feed them, forgive them, and call it all God's plan. That wasn't because Joseph was naturally that strong. That was because the same battle, repeated 100 different ways, had refined him into a man who could carry a nation. If the same thing keeps coming back to your front door, it's not a curse. It's not a generational pattern you can't break. It's the training ground for an assignment so weighty that you needed this exact muscle developed before heaven could safely hand you the next chapter. The sixth sign is the magnetism you didn't ask for. Strangers tell you things. People you've known for 15 minutes open up about traumas they haven't told their own spouses. The cashier at the grocery store unloads on you. The Uber driver tells you about his marriage. The person sitting next to you on a plane spills their entire life story before the seatbelt sign turns off. You didn't ask. You didn't pry. You didn't even necessarily want the conversation. But there's something in your spirit that broadcasts safety. There's something in your eyes that tells people, you can put it down here. I won't drop it. There's something invisible around you that pulls the broken into your orbit, even when you yourself feel broken. That's a marking. That's not a personality trait. That's a deposit of priestly anointing that the world calls charisma, but heaven calls calling. The Omega tier is wired this way because their assignment, almost always, involves the unburdening of others. They are receptacles. They are catchers. They are the ones who get to hear the secrets the world doesn't get to hear. And it's heavy. Don't let anyone tell you it isn't. The weight of being a catcher is real. But it's also one of the most precise signs of what tier you're walking in. The seventh sign is the recognition by other chosen ones. When you meet one, you both know. There's no ceremony. There's no exchange of credentials. You're standing in a coffee shop or a hallway or a parking lot, and your eyes meet someone else's, and there's a flicker. They feel it. You feel it. Sometimes you talk. Sometimes you don't. But you both walk away knowing. The Omega level signal isn't a thing you can fake. People in lower tiers try sometimes. They put on the language. They use the verses. They sound the part. But the spirit doesn't echo back. There's a flatness to it. A performance. Real Omega recognizes real Omega, the way a tuning fork recognizes its own note. If you've spent your whole life feeling alone, and then occasionally once a year, once a decade, you've met someone who saw you instantly, who knew you without needing the resume, who looked at you like they'd been waiting for you to walk into the room that wasn't friendship in the normal sense. That was the kingdom recognizing itself across two bodies of flesh, and it's rarer than most people realize. God does not move things without purpose. If this message reached you today, there was a reason before you ever clicked. The secret protocol carries the 7 keys that reveal what was deposited in you before your birth and what the spirit is beginning to awaken in this exact season. The full audiobook is included to walk with you in your quiet moments, and the awakening map, as a bonus unveiling the 5 stages of spiritual awakening, where you have been, where you are, and what is coming. Link pinned in the first comment. But divine windows do not stay open indefinitely. Now let me bring you into the 8th sign, because this is where things get serious. The 8th sign is the silencing of cheap voices. You may have noticed in the last year, or the last few months, that voices that used to influence you don't move you anymore. Music that used to lift you sounds hollow. Influencers you used to follow seem suddenly empty. Even teachers and preachers you used to listen to feel thin to you now, like watered-down milk when your spirit is asking for meat. This isn't pride. This isn't you becoming arrogant. This is heaven thinning your spiritual diet down to what will actually nourish what's coming. The Omega-level chosen ones go through a phase where the menu gets smaller and smaller. Not because there's less out there, but because you can no longer absorb what isn't real. Your spirit is being prepared for revelation, and revelation doesn't coexist well with noise. You'll find yourself drawn to silence, to scripture without commentary, to worship without performance, to prayer without script, to the kind of stillness that most people find unbearable, but you find suddenly necessary. If this is happening to you, don't fight it. Don't try to force yourself back into the old rhythms. The old rhythms were fine for the previous tier. They won't carry you in this one. This silencing season is one of the most reliable indicators that you've been moved up. Heaven doesn't promote you with a ceremony. Heaven promotes you by changing your appetite. And now, the 9th sign. The one I've been building toward this whole time. The one that, if it lands in your spirit, you will know. The 9th sign is the burden you can't put down. There is something inside you. Something you've carried for as long as you can remember. A weight, a knowing, a theme. Maybe it's a people group. Maybe it's a generation. Maybe it's a category of brokenness, addiction, abandonment, abuse, prodigals, the unreached, the religious wounded, the lost children of believers. Maybe it's a city. Maybe it's a nation. Maybe it's something so specific you've barely told anyone, because the moment you say it out loud, it sounds either too big or too small. You've tried to put it down. You've tried to convince yourself someone else will pick it up. You've tried to live a normal life and pretend the burden isn't there. And every time you tried, the burden came back heavier than before. You'd be sitting at dinner, and your eyes would fill up out of nowhere because someone mentioned a person who fit the burden's profile. You'd be driving, and you'd have to pull over because the weight hit you again. You'd be in a worship service, and a single word from a song would gut you, because that one word brushed against the thing you were sent here to address. That burden is your name. That burden is the assignment heaven wrote on you before you took your first breath. It's not optional. It's not negotiable. It's not something that you can pass off to a more qualified person, because there is no more qualified person. Heaven trained you for this specifically, in private, for decades, while everyone else thought you were just struggling. The Omega-level chosen ones are defined by the burden they cannot put down. And the burden is always specific. It's never vague. It's never save the world or make a difference. It's always pointed. It's always exact. It's always something that, if you described it in detail, the person hearing it would either weep or shut down. There's no middle ground. Jeremiah carried this kind of burden. He called it a fire in his bones. He tried to stop speaking. He tried to walk away from the assignment. He told God he was done, that he wasn't going to mention his name anymore, that he was going to find a quieter life and let someone else carry the weight. And then he wrote that famous line that the fire, shut up in his bones, became unbearable, and he could not contain it. He had to speak. He had to move. He had to obey, even when obeying cost him everything. That's the kind of burden I'm describing. It's not a passion you picked. It's a fire that was lit inside you before you knew what fire was. You can ignore it. You can try to drown it. You can build a whole career and a whole identity around pretending it isn't there. But it will not let you go. And the day you finally stop running from it is the day your real life begins. If you know what your burden is, you already know what tier you're in. You don't need confirmation from a man on a screen. You need to stop running from the weight and start asking the one who gave it to you what he wants you to do next. And here's the hard truth most won't say. The burden is heavy precisely because you are strong enough to carry it. Heaven doesn't hand crushing weight to fragile people. The weight is the compliment. The weight is the witness. The weight is the evidence that long before you were born, the Father looked at you and said, this one can carry it. This one won't break under it. This one will keep walking, even when no one cheers, even when no one notices, even when no one in this entire generation seems to understand what's happening inside their chest. I want to close with something. The Omega level is not a status. It's not a flex. It's not a badge to wear in front of other believers. If you walk away from this video puffed up, you miss the entire point. The Omega level is the opposite of status. It's the deepest service. It's the smallest seat at the longest table. It's the loneliest road in the most populated kingdom. The people in this tier are not the celebrities of the faith. They're often the ones nobody knows about. The ones who pray for a city no one's heard of, in a kitchen no one's seen, at 3 in the morning while their family sleeps. Heaven keeps a different record than Earth does. Earth ranks by visibility. Heaven ranks by faithfulness in obscurity. If you've been the one who was faithful in obscurity, if you've been the one who showed up when no one was watching, who prayed when no one was applauding, who carried the burden when nobody was helping, heaven sees. Heaven has always seen. And heaven is starting to move things around your life right now, to bring the next chapter forward. Stop apologizing for being made the way you were made. Stop trying to shrink down to fit into rooms that were never going to hold you. Stop comparing your timeline to the people around you who are walking a completely different assignment at a completely different tier. Their pace is not your measurement. Their applause is not your reward. Their understanding is not required for your obedience. You were made for a smaller circle and a deeper depth. Walk in it. One last thing before you go. Out of the 9 signs, there's one that costs you the most. There's one that, when you read it back to yourself, you feel a kind of grief because you've paid for that sign for years, maybe decades, maybe your whole life. The interference, the discernment that won't shut off, the dreams that woke you up sweating, the friendships you lost, the substitutes that never worked, the burden you tried to put down and couldn't. Tell me which one cost you the most. Don't list all 9. Don't write a paragraph about each. Pick the one with the highest tax, the one with the deepest bruise, the one that, if you could trade it back tomorrow for a normal life, you wouldn't even hesitate. Write it in the comments. 1 sentence, 1 sign, 1 cost. I read these. I pray over them, and somebody else in this thread is going to scroll past your answer tonight and see their own life written in your words, and know for the first time that they're not alone in the room.